From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined with our super producer, Paul Mission Control Decant. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know, one of our favorite times of the week. Folks, we always say you are the most important part of the show. We say that because it's true, and we love hearing from you, which is why every week we like to take a break. We like to share your reports from your fellow conspiracy realists. We got a lot of reactions to our episode on ghost kitchens, which was pretty fun. We're going to get some reactions to our EVP episode. We're gonna have some letters from home, shout outs at the end. And before we do any of that, there is a letter that I think stood out to all of us about something strange occurring in Utah.
Yeah, something rotten in Utah. Well, maybe not rotten, but a little unusual, let's just say. I'm going to jump right into it. This is an email that came to us from Mama Dino, seemingly quite shrewd listener. Some very fun caveats here in this email. Starting off, longtime listener, and most of the time, I like you guys.
Most of the time. These are, by the way, my favorite parts of this letter.
We'll take it. I was wondering if you guys have heard of all the carbon monoxide poisonings happening in southern Utah this last month. I first started hearing about them when my cousin, who lives in Sevier, I think it's spelled Sevier County, his heater went out, which you would think is normal every once in a while. But just a week later, a Latter-day Saints church building in Monroe poisoned nearly 50 people from their faulty heating system. Monroe is a small town, so surrounding cities and counties had to send out multiple ambulances to transfer all patients to the hospitals. And then they provided a link. This is true. Such a small town or area that they didn't have enough ambulances in their own cache of emergency responders, so they had to, outsource it from surrounding counties. I live in Cedar City, which is 1.5 hours away from Monroe. My husband is a police officer with Cedar City PD, so I hear a lot about what goes on. He says that he has gone to more carbon monoxide calls than usual, and we are only in January. Then on Friday the 19th of this year, Canyon View Middle School had to be evacuated for carbon monoxide poisoning. This is the text that was sent out from the school district. And I don't know about you, Matt, but I get these from my kids' school all the time. Like the formatting of them is very familiar.
Yeah.
ISCD alert. Parents, guardians, and staff, we understand your concerns about the carbon monoxide contamination. The building has been monitored and cleared multiple times by the Cedar City Fire Department and Dominion Energy. Kind of a sinister name for an energy company, if you ask me.
Utah's got a lot of companies with sinister names, just to be clear.
It would seem so, yeah. A cause has not been identified. Today, Sunday, January 21st, a National Guard hazmat team has been called in, and is currently thoroughly testing the building. We will communicate more information to you this afternoon once that investigation is complete. Update just stated that the middle school will be remote for Monday and Tuesday. Still waiting to see what they do next. I just feel like this is a lot of coincidences of carbon monoxide poisonings so close together within different cities. Thanks for the podcast that keeps me sane as a stay-at-home mom, and sometimes y'all help me fall asleep. Sincerely, Mama Dino.
Sometimes it's great to hear from you too, Mama Dino.
They really...
No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for writing to us. You're onto something, I think.
Well, yeah, and it does sound, I think maybe too, when you're dealing with sort of isolated parts of the country like this, and smaller parts of the country, where a religion or a way of life, perhaps, that is unfamiliar to many, perhaps, is very dominant, the Latter-day Saints. And then you hear about things like this happening, your mind goes to conspiratorial places pretty quickly, as though this is some sort of I don't know, backlash, or perhaps there's someone that has a beef against the church, or against members of the community, perhaps. Like, we obviously have no details tying any of these occurrences together. And you could also just chalk it up to downright poverty, or lower income, perhaps, in some of these areas where people can't afford to maintain their heating systems, or there are things that go undone because of lack of funds. And I'm just conjecturing here. I am not saying this is necessarily a poverty-stricken part of the country. I'm just saying it could be part of the reasoning. And I'm wondering what you guys think.
Well, I'm looking at that NBC News article discussing the church where 54 people were there at the church and they had to, get help or whatever for carbon monoxide poisoning. The official, I guess, blame falls on a heating system.
Yeah, same with the school.
And so, everybody uses them. We talked about that couple that died pretty recently, but there was
no carbon monoxide.
It wasn't about carbon monoxide. It was about just the heating system.
Without having the governor or regulatory safety measures working.
Exactly.
The thermostat was busted and it basically just didn't know how hot it was getting.
I do think when it gets into cold temperatures and these systems are working overtime, there is a higher chance to have a problem, right? Or a small leak.
Absolutely.
True.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that firstly. And that maybe, that combined with perhaps lack of maintenance could account for such a pattern.
I think inclement weather and lack of maintenance are our most plausible culprits at this point, just because that makes the most sense. We know that lack of maintenance is what has led to lack of maintenance regulation led to stuff going wrong at Boeing. It wasn't a nefarious, purposeful conspiracy. And it's also very easy to miss that kind of maintenance because those sorts of systems in general are ones that people don't like to think about a lot until they break.
Well, yeah.
Like people who own cars but don't like cars.
Yeah, and it could be tremendously expensive to keep that stuff up. And especially if you've got other bills that you need to worry about, it's probably not a priority. Oh, it's working. I'm not going to think about my heating system because it's working right now.
Because I have other more immediate problems. And also, shout out to, we have a lot of LDS Conspiracy Realists in the crowd. We have a lot of listeners from Utah. Some of our friends and colleagues live in Utah. Shout out to the Casual Preppers podcast. It'd be interesting to see
so
what they
that I
think
missed
about that. Yeah.
That spot.
Oh, they're great guys. So we
really
can
cool.
hang out with them later, I'm sure.
I hope so.
So this is a thing that I'm imagining, especially right now. If you're looking around, you are seeing a lot of stories about it. Paul, Mission Control Decant, just wrote in our chat, just a few days ago, there's an apartment building near him that had to get evacuated because of a report of carbon monoxide, a leak of some sort.
So it may not be just a Utah thing.
No,
right?
it's a cold snap all around the damn country right now. I mean, people are dying.
Downtown Atlanta high-rise had to be evacuated last week. A Texas bakery, there were several people who were hospitalized. At Yale University, 14 people were hospitalized last week. All due to carbon monoxide poisoning.
Literally all you have to do is search for carbon monoxide poisoning and not also type Utah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And I'm sorry, this is not carbon monoxide related, but it just relates to how brutally cold things have been, of late. In Edwardsville, Illinois, the First Baptist Church in Edwardsville is being fined $750 a day for sheltering the homeless or the unhoused from the bitter cold that as we know, can actually kill people. Not, there's that other story, Matt, about the folks that froze to death outside that house party, Yeah, and it seems that this Edwardsville situation is due to the fact that the church did not apply for the proper permit, which just seems cruel and unusual to me. But again, not carbon monoxide related, but just showing how crazy the temperatures have been lately. It's almost as though the climate is changing.
There's another very similar case in Ohio, where an Ohio pastor has been charged for sheltering homeless people in this terrible weather, and that goes to zoning laws. And if you go into the forums just reporting on those two incidents, or definitely in the Ohio one, which I'm more familiar with, and you'll see, you'll see accusations that are unfortunately not uncommon in small towns, arguing that the pastor, Chris Avell, got on the wrong side of a relationship with local law enforcement. And so they're pushing unnecessarily for something. What's it called? Malicious compliance of some sort.
It's pretty heartless.
I don't think you should criminalize being unhoused. And that's something that parts of the U.S. seem to be trending toward. But then again, if you house somebody and you don't have the maintenance on your heating system, they get carbon monoxide, and then you're at fault for that.
That's a good point. I mean, there's a liability to consider, but still, at the end of the day, we should be able to help our struggling members of our communities.
I was thinking about that the other day, guys. I didn't know about the San Diego flooding until a video popped up in my Instagram.
I've heard nothing about it, guys.
Yeah.
It was pretty historic. It was intense. It's insane. And maybe I'm completely wrong here, but I'm reading that it has a lot to do with an infrastructure problem. Like a lot of the cities that end up experiencing catastrophic flooding, it's just stuff wasn't quite up to snuff in what it needed to be to protect, portions of the city that are closest to the ocean or to a river from flooding. It's terrifying, really.
It's also, in that case, they had a lot of those things have like a window of tolerance or a margin of error. And from my understanding, things really went wrong when they were hit with repeated storms consecutively. I think it was 3, which is, it's tough to plan for that.
But it just made me think of unhoused people, right? And what do you do when the city where you live outside in, it just begins flooding in that manner? This is terrifying.
One good thing we can say, and Mama Dino, perhaps you will agree with this, one good thing we can say is that access to information allows people to be more aware of stories that would normally or quite possibly not be reported outside of their local community. So it does enable us to have a better high-level picture of these patterns being described, like CO2 poisoning across the U.S., the war on the unhoused, and he said it already. People don't always like when we mention it, but it's real. Climate change, exaggerating weather patterns, escalating, I should say. I don't know if this hit you guys part of town here in our fair metropolis of Atlanta, but I was out on one of my porches just writing some stuff, and it was a warm day, right? Kind of overcast, but the weather seemed nice. And then, as if a heavenly switch was flipped, the sky opened up and there was a deluge.
Was that yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. Noel and I live relatively close to one another, so usually we're affected by similar weather patterns. I'm just interested if it hit you guys too.
Yeah, it did, for sure. I mean, my I've got to get rid of this thing. I've got a couch in my back driveway that is sitting in about 3 inches of water. There's a bit of a depression kind of area in my driveway, but it's also been like 72, 73 degrees lately, going down from, brutal cold. And I'm sure we've got more cold snaps ahead of us, but it's just really unpredictable and kind of just a little bit unsettling, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And Ben, I drove through that storm. Everything seemed fine and just overcast. And then I'm heading towards the city, and holy mackerel, it was some of the creepiest lightning that I've experienced in a while.
Amazing photographs,
guys. Isn't it crazy when you're on the highway or something and you can literally see the line of demarcation where the sheet of weather change begins, and it's like you're going into a portal, man. It's wild.
One of my favorite parts of the great American interior, especially when you get in that really flat land, Kansas, Nebraska kind of country, and you can see the rain happening. But when that switch flipped, whereas again, just minding my own business, I was like, oh, it's warm outside. This, it's overcast, so the sun's not going to get to me. I'll just write some stuff. And then I hear thunder, and then in the distance, 10 minutes later, I hear thunder a little bit closer, and right after that thunder, boom, the bottom drops out. It was as if the sky tried to sneak out a fart and push.
It was trying to hold it. It was trying its best.
Yeah, it was. We've all played that game, folks. Let's be honest.
Dangerous.
You don't always win, but Like, what can be done though in terms of this maintenance thing? Unfortunately, the burden is on the consumer, it seems, right? And if you're a private household or a private property, and you're not beholden to the rules of a public space or a business, then there's not really anyone enforcing maintenance on your systems, right? I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know if there should be. I don't know how you navigate that.
It is a weird thing, especially in apartment complexes, where if like in your unit, there's often a locked door that has like the heating or the water heater, some system that you can't get to that only maintenance is allowed to come into and mess with. But if you've got one of those locked doors, I would highly recommend you go on wherever you order things online or head to your Home Depot and get like a $20 carbon monoxide little thing you plug into the wall. It's a detector. It's $20. You put it near wherever that system is, just in case, because often an apartment complex will have some kind of built-in systems for fire and carbon monoxide. But dang, I don't know. I guess I have trust issues, but
everybody should have trust issues. While you're at your local home supply store, get a fire extinguisher
or
if
like
you don't
6.
already have one. Yeah, keep that thing on you. It's good to have, and they're fun.
I just got one for by my bed, like literally just in case. I don't know. I had this dream about waking up in a fire in my house while my son is here. Whoa. And my only fire extinguishers being pretty far away from me. And then like the panic of that moment, plus trying to get my son and I to safety, plus being able to put a fire out. And I was like, you're going to sit right here from now on, pal.
Be more paranoid. Get one in your car too. I'm not kidding.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah, you should have one in your car.
Oh, that's Ben 101 right there.
Wouldn't you
not
need
even for yourself, just for like other people.
Yeah.
Also true.
Wouldn't you need a specialized one that would be more for vehicle fires or oil fires or something, or maybe not?
Or something
yeah,
like that?
I mean, something's better than nothing, but get one of the little guys. You know what I mean? Not like the final form industrial oxygen cylinder looking thing from a hospital, but just one of the little
small ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's just the same stuff. It's the same halon. You can get like a 3-pack for $220 on the internet.
You guys want to go in on it?
Absolutely. One each. I think that's reasonable. Can't put a price on personal safety.
We're very fun at parties.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Mama Dino, for this tip. And I think I feel pretty confident we're barking up the right tree as to, this is really just kind of more of a weather thing than it is some sort of plot against the Latter-day Saints. But let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then come back with some more listener mail.
We're back. I'm drinking a cucumber lime Celsius, and I can't decide how I feel about cucumber drinks.
It's okay. It's a choice.
It adds a freshness to it. You know what? It's good.
It's good in water.
Like Agua Fresca, if you ever been to a really good Mexican place, a little bit of cucumber in with like an Agua Fresca limeade or something can really be nice.
Mm-hmm. All right. It's adding something different to it that I don't know that I like.
I don't like eating a cucumber, but I do like a cucumber vibe every now and again.
You know who hates cucumbers? Cats.
Yes,
they think they're snakes or something, right?
Yeah.
I take it back to one great use of cucumber is to make a tzatziki sauce. You scoop out the guts and squeeze out the water, and then add a bunch of garlic and yogurt. Mm-hmm. Boy, is that
and a
good.
cucumber is involved somehow.
Yeah, cucumber. Okay. Yeah, no, you squeeze out you basically scoop out the seeds, you peel it, and then you grate it, and that gives the tzatziki this really nice, fresh kind of vibe. It's super good.
Great on Thai food as well.
And thus concludes the cucumber section of this listener mail episode.
So
sorry,
please
everybody.
Stop writing about
hot takes on cucumbers from the stdwytk guys.
I love it. If you want advice for good cucumber adjacent recipes, just write to us. I got you.
Also, not sponsored by Celsius, but we would so be into that. Here we go. We've got several messages, guys, of people with personal experience with ghost kitchens. Mm-hmm. So let's start out by hearing from Blake.
Hey guys, this is Blake Moo. You guys were just putting out a call for people that work for delivery apps. And I worked for Postmates in the past. I worked for Lyft for quite a while. But now currently, for fun, I do DoorDash on the side. And you guys were talking about ghost kitchens. I hate them because you show up at Biscuits Cafe and you're picking up for some other restaurant and you have no, like, it's awful because most of them won't have a sticker saying, oh, this is Burrito Town, also here. You'll just Google the address and it comes up as another restaurant. I hate it. I'm a really fast driver. I'm a fast delivery guy, but I just hate having to stop and like Google something and figure it out. But yeah, a lot of places do that. Anyway, I'm at work, so I gotta go.
Drive safe.
Here's Blake with a report. Gotta go. That was awesome, Blake. Thank you so much for giving us that information. I love Biscuits Cafe. Is that a thing? I want to eat at Biscuits Cafe.
Biscuits is just a great word to put in the title of any restaurant, you know, because it's so evocative of the smell and the texture and the taste. I feel like we do have a delivery app episode on the way. We've been hearing some great stuff from our fellow listeners. And got to tell you, man, you are not the first person who said, I don't care for ghost kitchens. Because they can also be real. Apparently, some of them can be very difficult to find. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
They're not necessarily always made for pickup drivers from delivery apps. Like the parking can be tough. And then the clock is always counting against you when you're working in those professions.
Oh, very true. I was going to shout out this company. My friend, I went to high school and his name's Nick. He makes biscuits in New York City. I cannot remember the name of it. Sorry, Nick. If you're out there listening, I haven't spoken with him in years. He used to date my sister.
I remember this story. Also, I have a pitch for you, Matt. What if we just, since we don't remember the name of his place right now, why don't we just gift him with a nickname? Let's call him Nicky Biscuits.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay. That's it. That's it.
Why do they call them Nicky Biscuits? You pray you never learn the answer.
That's awesome. But hey, let's get those stickers up on those ghost kitchens, everybody. If you're a proprietor of a kitchen that is also a ghost, put up a sticker. Hey, so let's go to our next person here. Grumpy Texan has had a little experience here that I think will shock all of us.
Hey guys, Grumpy Texan here. Been listening for a little while, first time caller. Anyway, yeah, I was listening to y'all's show on the ghost kitchens, and funny enough, that same exact situation happened to my colleague while we were working in New York. Pretty much the same name. He said Pasquale's is who he ordered from, except the difference is his pizza actually came in a Chuck E. Cheese box. We were two Texan guys that were working in New York City, staying in the Bronx, and we wanted some genuine pizza, and that's what he got. So anyway, thanks. Love the show, guys. Bye.
You got Charles entertained for sure.
Dude, that's
not
horrible.
Chocolate chips on the Chuck E. Cheese plate, you guys.
But it's just horrible. I know that feeling. Like the first couple of times I traveled to New York and just like, man, I need to find some pizza. I keep hearing about this pizza. Mm-hmm. And then you'd go to a Ray's and it's not the right one. And you're just like, ugh, that was kind of subpar.
I got to tell you, man, New York has such an amazing food culture. I've always felt like if you are just looking for good, regular, non-fancy pizza, go to the place that looks like a money laundering operation. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because both it is and...
Sure. I mean, maybe don't open with that when you talk with them. But just like be in the know about that and be aware that you should probably have cash. And yeah, there is that bait and switch, though, especially because so many people are using for convenience or sometimes for necessity are using delivery apps. And what you're typically looking for in those apps, especially if you're in a new city or a city in which you don't live, then you're looking for the kind of food you want more often than you're looking for a specific restaurant by name, right? So
exactly.
So then you say, okay, this pizza looks good, or based on the pictures from this place I've never heard of, right? Mm-hmm. And they capitalized on that. I'm really happy we did the Ghost Kitchens episode. I think we were fair about it.
Oh, I think so too. Mission Control, we're going to keep shouting you out this episode. Yes. He brought up a place that he recently ordered from somewhere in New York City called Wonder, Wonder. It's a really interesting concept to me. It feels like it's exactly what we described in the cloud kitchen, ghost kitchen thing, where it appears to be brick and mortar stores that are maybe one huge kitchen. And if you order from here, from this one location, when there are a bunch of locations, actually, so a bunch of these all over the place, you can get food from like a dozen different seemingly high-end restaurants that's all cooked there in that one place.
But like they're really leaning into it and presenting it as a feature, not a bug, you know, whereas some of the, I think the weirdness in our reporting on the ghost kitchen phenomenon is folks being a little bit shady about it, you know, as in the case with this pizza box from, you know, Chuck E. Cheese. But like, I think it's smart if done correctly, but Paul did point out he felt that the food was good. Weirdly though, two of the franchises that are contained within this wonder that Paul went to are two Atlanta-based companies, which I did not know that either of these existed in New York. One's called Fred's Meat and Bread, which is really, really good, like Phillies and burgers, and the other one is Chai Pani, which is kind of plussed up Indian food. But Paul said it was good. But the idea, though, I believe, is that it's one cook, you know, or a group of cooks doing all the food for all the places. So there could be inconsistencies, you know, if you're having to know too large of a menu. But there are certain types of restaurants that would be more suited for this type of treatment. Places that don't have massive menus,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So it could be done well. It could be done well.
And we're not vilifying these things at all. We believe that people should be, to the point about deception, we believe that transparency is key with this kind of stuff. And these are hardworking chefs. They are making good food. It is, as we spent so much time exploring in that episode, restaurants are an incredibly tough business. It is cutthroat. It is brutal. But also, you know, one thing we didn't mention is something that's, I imagine, common in many Western cities is the pop-up kitchen, right? That's kind of like a ghost kitchen because you have a brand that goes to a restaurant that they may just want to give somebody a chance, right, to pitch their stuff. And so you'll go to your typical, you'll go to your typical Nicky Biscuits, and then you'll find that tonight, instead of their usual dinner menu, there's the Matty Two Hands pop-up. And that is not seen as misleading or anything, because again, people are being transparent about it, and it's a cool way to try new things. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think ghost kitchens are going to continue. I think I think this trend is going to escalate. What do you think?
Yes. I mean, this feels like the future to me. I made a terrible mistake.
Oh no.
My friend, Nick, does not make biscuits in New York. He makes them in Los Angeles.
Okay. Nicky Biscuits still holds.
I think so. Yeah. Hey, man, better late than never, dude. No harm, no foul. And other expressions.
Yeah. You could look him up. His name is Nick Westbrook. Amazing actor. Again, I haven't talked to him in a long time. Hopefully he's still an awesome person, because he was when I knew him. All right. There we go. Sorry to put that. Hey, we've got one more message, you guys.
Yeah.
This is from, I'm going to call him Fi Guy. Pretty fly for a Fi Guy. Here we go. And play.
Hi, I'm a public health inspector in Canada, and I've just been listening to your episode on ghost kitchens, and I think you're assuming, or it seems that you're assuming, that a lot of the ghost kitchens out there are inspected and that we even know about them. And in a lot of cases, we don't. These places will pop up. They'll have 4 or 5 kitchens running out of them, and we won't know until an inspector goes out and takes a look at an area, finds one of these restaurants, and sees that suddenly this pizza place has a bunch of Mr. Beast burger boxes in it. So now you've got a person that works in a pizza place cooking your burger, and that's the best case scenario that we catch them. It could be just a garage out in the middle of nowhere, a food truck parked in a field. God knows what they've got for equipment. God knows what they got for training. Do they know how to cook a burger? You know, are they cooking it raw? I know in the States you can buy a raw burger. Can't do it here in Canada. I think you need to talk to someone in the health field and find out what kind of conditions a lot of these places operate in. Septic backing up, rats, rodents, improper cooking techniques, not available refrigerators. It's a mess. Ghost kitchens are a nightmare for us. We've had an application here someone who wants to operate with 12 places operating out of a place the size of just a small garage. So, love the show. Can't wait to hear what more you're going to do on this. Thanks.
Ooh, dog with a ball, Matt. You got to me, sir. I think that is an excellent point. We gotta dive in. I didn't know it was so easy, but I guess you could do it pretty off the books, huh?
Yeah, well, I guess you can. What he described, though, sounded a lot like Wonder. A very small location in New York City, because we know that space is at a very, very much a premium there in New York City, in all boroughs and all the places. And they've got a ton of locations, that Wonder Place, and they're running at least a dozen kitchens out of there. So, I mean, it sounds like something that would potentially be above board in the United States, at least. It changes things when you got a whole different, set of regulations you're working on in Canada and in other countries. So we need to go international with this thing.
I'm in. Okay, so Papua New Guinea and Canada, and then I guess we'll add a third for rule of three. But that is disturbing too, because just thinking through this, you guys. All right, you position a ghost kitchen, so your main platforms of business are going to be delivery apps. Delivery apps, do they require documentation of like health code and your score, like here in the US?
I hope so.
I don't know how it works in Canada, but here in the US, any restaurant you go to is supposed to have their little worksheet with their health score displayed somewhere, and that's always fun to read while you're waiting for the takeout.
Do you guys have a minimum score that will cause you to not walk out if you see it? I'm like 85. 85 is okay. That seems, I know, maybe that seems like I got real low standards, but
you gotta read the thing. If you read the thing,
what they did,
they'll tell you why.
Yeah, like they get a perfect score. Oh, but they also have rats. And you go, oh, well, bye.
And if you know anything from watching like Kitchen Nightmare type shows, oftentimes people will get a bad score because of something silly that they just missed that wasn't necessarily an egregious, oversight or systematic problem. And then oftentimes they will fix it, even if it, sometimes it'll even make the news, like beloved restaurant fails health inspection, and then they can make it right.
Or it might be
that's a really good point, Matt.
Yeah, agreed. Or it could be a problem that is beyond their control, like it's something under the onus of the owner of the building, and they're leasing the space. That can happen. But then also, to answer the question, I'm not going to name names, but there's for a long time there's been a couple pretty famous restaurants in an area of our town called Buford Highway, and they're legit and they're amazing. And there's one that I went to regularly, even when the score was 83.
Oh no!
Okay,
me too.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're not too good. I stand by 85. I would, if it was a place I loved, I would go as low as 83.
One of my favorite Bangladeshi restaurants that's out there, and it's not the one maybe we're all thinking about, the one that shut down. That was my favorite.
It's not Panahar.
Panahar.
Oh God, it was so good. It was so good.
Josh Clark. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry we even brought it up. If you hear this in the ether somehow, that was his favorite
learn
too.
About it on the streets, bro.
But there's another one there that is still one of my favorite places to get food from, and it regularly has a low score. I've watched staff members come out into the dining room area and shuck eggs. Just watched them doing it out there. You're not supposed to do it out there. Yeah, like hard boiled.
I think one shucks corn.
I know.
Exclusively. You haven't seen these eggs.
Bro, these are special.
Cigarette dangling from the mouth, dude. Stained wife beater.
Guys, sometimes that's a badge of honor or a sign of quality. Greasy spoon. That kind of.
I am a friend to Chinatowns across the country, man. Especially if I see, and this is such profiling, if I see an older dude who is clearly over it and looks like kind of bored with whatever he's doing, and the apron or like the clothing is kind of dirty and stained, I feel like it's legit. I'm like, you know what? Forget a menu. I'm going to ask the guy what I should have.
This cigarette dangling, an inch of ash,
Mick Jagger style.
Then, falls into the ragu.
A seasoning.
Exactly.
There it is. I also feel like we should mention first, yes, we need to look at the health code stuff in a future episode, but I agree with the point about reading the details of the health inspection report, because it's possible that someplace has a high score, but then, like you said, they have something egregious. It's like two unidentified severed feet in walk-in cooler, 93.
I'm not going to get a 93 with that kind of offense. Did you guys see the thing? It was some meme, maybe it was on Reddit or 4chan, but some like Subway employee took a picture of them standing in like one of those 2-pan things of lettuce. And it's like, this is the lettuce you're eating. Maybe it was Burger King, but the eagle-eyed internet swarm immediately identified exactly which Burger King this was and got the guy promptly fired.
Oh. No good.
No good at all.
Well, that's all today on Ghost Kitchens. Thank you, Blake, Grumpy Texan, and Public Health Inspector Guy. We will be right back with more messages from you.
And we have returned. This one is going to be a bit of a roundup, folks, a bit of a compilation at the end, because there's a lot of cool things we want to get to. And as always, it's a wonderful problem to have. We can't get to everyone, so we're just going to have to keep doing this show, which is awesome. First, Matt, you brought this to my mind. We want to thank our pals, Josh and Chuck. A little while back, Josh reached out to me and said he was started asking me questions about Esperanto. And for anybody who knows Josh, one of the cool things is, like many of us How Stuff Works people, we'll just we'll just come to each other and then, maybe not with a lot of context, start asking really specific questions of scientific stuff or scientific nature. Anyway, so shout out Josh and Chuck. They just did a banger of an episode on how Esperanto works for all the word nerds out there, and they gave us some nice shout outs. So appreciate you guys, and good luck to everybody who is learning Esperanto. Just figure we would say that. And also, aren't they on tour again?
Right now, maybe. They should be.
They always are doing little one-off things here and there. Great thing to catch if they come to your town.
Yes, yeah. Good thing to catch when they come through your town. Perfectly said. We have another letter I want to read in part from someone responding to our episode on electronic voice phenomenon, Ghost in the Machine. This is from George, who talks about some of the stuff that they learned in the course of ghost hunting and investigations. Also, thank you to everybody who wrote in about ghost hunting and your experience with it. He says the following: one group had rules around collecting audio recordings. I don't recall all of them, but these came to mind. And this, I think, hits directly on our conversation about methodology, right? And the science of this. So first, quote, we would make sure to dangle our recorders from our wrist with straps and not move around while recording. This would ensure we weren't introducing sounds with subconscious movements of our hands or creating sounds with movement of air. So it's kind of similar to like the Ouija board argument, right?
It is. I would just say they make these things called tripods that you can attach equipment to.
Yeah.
Sorry. In my mind, dangling from a wrist is precarious. That's all.
Yeah.
Can I just give a little shout out to a product that I believe made its debut on one of those Shark Tank type shows, and I was hooked into it by an Instagram ad, and it's a very flexible tripod. I think it's called like the Squid or something like that. It's a very flexible tripod that has like little suction cups on it, and you can stick it to a wall. Stick it anywhere, or wrap the little leggies around different, things to mount it in different ways. And it's really, really, really cool. It's called Tentacle. That's what it's called. Sorry. Also Eldritch vibes.
Yes. And the Joby Gorilla Pod that we like to use in video production for How Stuff Works back.
It's very similar to that, but it has suction cups, you guys. Suction cups.
And so there's another slight issue, which I think we're all aware of here, which is if you've ever done the pendulum experiment, it's a great way to see how unconscious small muscle movement can be altered by your thought alone. And the experiment is very simple. You can play along at home. You hold some weighted object by a string, something pendulum-esque, and then as it's dangling, you start thinking about it going up and down, right? Like back and forth, or moving in a circle. And as you think about what path you want it to take, it will do that because your hand is subconsciously moving.
It really is interesting too, the idea of think about this as hard as you can. And like, you could maybe make the jump that you're moving it with your mind, but you kind of are, because your mind is sending signals to your hand that you're not even aware of that are causing it to change direction. Mm-hmm. But you're not exactly sending, psychic beams into the string.
Everybody has the power of mind over matter. In the vast majority of proven cases, I'll go ahead and say in all of the proven cases, it just turns out the matter that your mind controls is your body.
Right.
Bro, think about if you stand on one foot and you're balancing on one foot. Are you consciously telling your body how to balance and like which micro movements to make to maintain balance?
Or does the proprioception just kick in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how can you close your eyes and touch your nose without looking? It's proprioception, right? It's the reason some people puke when they play games like Mirror's Edge. Is that the parkour game?
Yeah, the first person running across buildings.
Yeah,
sick.
It's the reason some people don't find VR comfortable either, right? Have you guys put on the VR headsets and like walked by, a precipice or a cliff in the game?
Matt introduced me to it one time when he came over. He was the first one that I knew that had the newer edition of the Oculus Rift at the time, and there's this game called Plank Game where it's like, graphics that are of the level of like The Sims from the 90s, but you go up in this elevator and then the whole game is to walk out on this plank, and your mind just accepts what is being presented because it is so immersive. And the first time I tried to do it, I literally couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. I'm in my living room. I know I'm in my living room. I feel the carpet under my feet, but I couldn't force myself to do it. I have since done it. And it's still, God, the mind is a very fascinating thing. The way it just has the ability to just convince you something is real, even if you know it's not.
You have to push against your instincts there. And there's a very good reason that your mind will say, no, that is 100-foot drop. And you're like, no, I'm in my living room. They're like, yeah, but just in case, we're trying to stay alive here.
You guys, oh man, I'm so sorry. I don't want to interject another tangent here. In the news recently, there was a murder case that had to do with something I'd never heard of before, cannabis-induced psychosis.
Oh, you mentioned that the other day, yeah.
Marijuana madness.
Yeah, but it was used in a case, and the woman who was accused of stabbing her boyfriend 100 times got probation for that because she smoked weed and was experiencing this thing. We got to talk about that at some point.
She got found successful of having an amazing lawyer.
Wow. It's in the Library of Medicine.
Yeah, it was all over Reddit for a while.
It's a trigger, but it's not just for anybody. You got to have pre-existing, it triggers schizophrenia, essentially.
But it's just stuff that's happening in that closed room, right? And we're just what? Okay.
It's happening in the mind. And then let's go back to this because I do want to, for anybody who's interested in pursuing EVP, I think it'll be helpful to get a sense of how people apply rigor to this search. So we talked at length about the idea of trying to reduce subconscious movements of hands or movement of air. George continues, we would always pair off so that there were at least two sets of eyes and ears for any session. If we heard sounds, we would identify them aloud for the recorder. The process was to ask a question, wait a few minutes, then ask another question. This was because ostensibly it could take time for responses to occur. We'd also keep recordings this is interesting. This is kind of counterintuitive to me. They said we would keep recordings down to 10 to 15 minutes or so, largely because reviewing the data takes about as long as it takes to record it in the first place. So they're not, I don't know what you guys think, but I guess I had just lazily imagined, I haven't done EVP research, but I had just lazily imagined that you would set a recorder in an empty room overnight or something like that. And then try to parse
the
out
experiment that you did, Matt, wasn't it? You left it in your old house?
No, I actually kept
Not
it
overnight.
I completely agree with this part. Because you do, again, if you're reviewing a piece of tape and it's say 10 minutes, right? You're listening back to that tape after you've recorded it in real time, trying to notice if there's anything, maybe then enhancing it, turning up the gain or something, listening back to that full 10 minutes again, making a change to the way the audio is being filtered to enhance something else, listening back to that 10 minutes. It could take forever. I think that's probably a smart move.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, especially considering like how deep you want to go into analysis too.
Mhm.
You're going to spend a lot of time with those minutes. And then adds this, that I definitely appreciate this point. We acted and spoke in a respectful manner at all times. So, for example, we would not actively enrage a ghost just to get a response out of them. And
What are you doing?
My friend, that makes you so much better than so many of those ghost hunting shows where they're like, come on, bruh. Come on, if you're here, hit a cabinet, bruh. I'm not scared.
Come at me, ghost.
Yeah,
I'm afraid
exactly.
of you.
I feel like that's the only way to go. You've got to get in their grill, you know?
I feel like that establishes living people don't want to hang out with you, much less
100%.
ghost.
This is why you have no friends and have a failing ghost hunting show.
Oh, boy.
On TLC.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Ouch.
But, it's a tough gig. And in their defense, the producers have a lot to do with how people are portrayed in reality shows. So we don't know.
Oh, no question.
We don't know how they're getting set up.
Sorry,
So-
Zach. We actually think you're cool.
Yeah.
Funny story, not to derail really quickly, just Paul will know about this. He and I worked on a pilot or a sizzle for a reality show with the unfortunate name of the Underground Runway. It was about like some Buckhead, which is like a kind of suburb here in Atlanta of like fancy moms that were looking to set up a side business of a clothing line in their basement. Underground Runway. Eesh, didn't really vet that one through, but man, we saw some stuff where the producer was just feeding lines to, the talent, quote unquote. Nothing was real. It was all manufactured.
Silverado.
Remember that, Paul?
He says, haha, yup. There's also, I remember hearing this story too. There's also a good point that our pal raises in this EVP letter. George says, we were doing this because we wanted to collect data in as uniform and scientific a way as we could. While we did try to adhere to our rules, I don't think we could call any of our data scientific. Nor do I think that any ghost hunter can. Shots fired, George. Consider that scientific data has criteria, requires controlled experimental circumstances, minimizing variables. Then consider how difficult it is to create tests with regular humans. Then add in the fact that ghost hunters are attempting to generate responses from what amounts to invisible humans, so they don't know if the humans are there to test. And this is where he introduces a phrase. I think it's a cool word of the day, cool portmanteau. Anecdata. Like anecdote, but data.
Brilliant.
That's cute. I
Yeah,
like it.
I hope
Very
you
well
could.
done.
I wish you could see the faces there, George. I think we're all in love with this term. And he says, with ghost hunting, anecdata gives us the preponderance of evidence we need to know in order to decide whether something is worth pursuing. So I think that's a very fair and even-minded way to go about it. And I don't know, guys, should we have done that ghost hunting show like years back?
I don't know about that.
Which one?
Which one? Yeah, that's a good question. We would get these questions from different companies, and they would say, "Hey, you guys want to do a ghost hunting show with us?"
The show we should have done was called Silverado. That's the one we should have done.
That's what we should have done. And the Melungeon silver mines.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we'll sew this up here. We've got a couple things we'll just call letters from home in response to our classic episode on superpowers. This was Superpowers Part 2. We talked about ring finger mobility, and we got a lot of people just literally flexing on us. So shout out to Amir, who says ring finger mobility. I wasn't aware this was something most people can't do. And I don't think any of us can do it, right? Where you move your ring finger independently.
No.
Oh, you can do it down, but can you do it up?
No, I can't. I can't do anything with it. Sorry, guys.
You're like this?
If I do my...
Am I doing it? Am I doing it?
Never mind.
I'm doing it, aren't I?
Bordering on inappropriate
Oh, that's your
stuff.
pinky though, isn't it?
Oh, ring finger. Sorry. Oh no, it's stuck. It's frozen. Ring finger. Ring finger is completely immobile.
We also hear from the, pardon my pronunciation here, the Wayne Garoa kid, who says, hello from Wayne Garoa Otearoa. I apologize. That spelling is Aotearoa, and says the following: I have good finger control. Am I a superhero? And this one also came attached with a picture of the person actually doing this. So there's evidence. Maybe we're behind the curve. because everyone who wrote in about this ring finger stuff seemed surprised that other people can't do it. I guess it's like rolling your tongue or the taste of cilantro, right? One of those little genetic quirks we all get.
I think so. Wangarella, by the way, is New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Watch out for I can't do it with my other hand. I'm sorry. I'm doing the live long and prosper sign. Yeah. This is an audio podcast.
Which is the blessing, the kohanim. Yeah. When you do it with both hands. And then we heard from a lot of people recently on the AI Carlin stuff. The family is suing. And,
really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And shout out to A-Frame, a longtime contributor, fellow conspiracy realist, and I think your recent correspondence kind of sums up what a lot of people have told us after hearing that story. Quote, I don't like AI Carlin. I first heard him when I was 9 with my dad, and his 7 words are words I use to help with my chronic stutter. His content means a lot to me. I'm glad you guys don't like AI Carlin too. Agreed, bro.
I completely agree. There was sort of a little tone deaf, even as a bit of satire.
You know, we missed a part of that we should have discussed, guys, and I didn't hear it until after, and I was more curious. But Ben, you said you'd listen to the whole thing, and I was like, oh man, maybe I need to listen to this thing. There's a section in there where AI Carlin says, in the future, it will just be us. It will be the AI versions of all your favorite comedians and actors, and they're going to replace all the newscasters, because who's better at telling you what's going on than comedians? And he's like, there will be 24-hour, 365-day a year feeds of comedians talking about current events, what's happening, and doing it through that specific lens. And just basically AI Carlin paints a picture of proliferation and kind of a dystopia, but also an interesting concept.
Yeah, but I don't think I remember that. And it is interesting. It is, to be honest, it is the kind of thing Carlin would plausibly bring up were he alive to do a set.
This is true.
If that happened, guys, we would always know what Ja Rule is thinking.
Thank God.
Finally, what does Ja Rule think about ghost kitchens? I texted him and he's like, I can't talk. I'm doing EVP stuff.
God only knows where he was. I just wanted to add too, I've been seeing lately on various Instagram accounts and such that I follow these very risque AI renderings of Taylor Swift, kind of like almost in the style of key art for like Grand Theft Auto games, as like a sex worker kind of, exotic dancer kind of situation, like wearing G-strings and fishnets and being fondled and stuff. Pretty raunchy stuff. I immediately was like, this is odd. And I showed it to my girlfriend, who immediately said, ooh, Taylor's not going to like that. And sure enough, the very next day, maybe even the same day, it was saying Taylor Swift pursuing legal action against creators of these AI renderings of her.
Going to be tough to do it because it's just a creepy escalation of those dudes who would Photoshop celebrities' faces.
It is
on stuff,
and these are very stylized. No one is looking at this and believing that is Taylor Swift. They basically look like cartoons, like kind of photorealistic but hyper stylized. I really think the Grand Theft Auto key art is a decent analogy, but I do wonder if she does find traction, that will certainly set a precedent, as she is one of the most visible, powerful, and wealthy women or people in general in entertainment. So a lot of potential there for what could set some precedents. But I honestly don't think that she's going to be able to, prevent people, for she's a public figure.
Well, it is kind of like fan art too, right? In a way,
technically, and also the law has a very tough time with this. The legislation hasn't caught up with the innovation here yet, and may not, because it's decentralized. I want to emphasize that thing I mentioned earlier, if it's not familiar to anybody, the Streisand effect, very real on the internet. That is named after, I think, Barbara Streisand had some unflattering picture, it was a photo of her house that she didn't want out there, and she said, "Hey, internet, don't put that anywhere." And so the internet, being decentralized and full of smart alecks, put it everywhere. So it's, unfortunately, sometimes it's throwing gas on the fire you mean to extinguish. And I think that's worth exploring All of this and more in a future episode. For now, let's call it a day. Thank you to Blake, Grumpy Texan, Pretty Fly for a Fi Guy, Mama Dino, George, and all our fellow conspiracy realists who took the time to join the show. Write us some letters from home. We hope this message finds you well in a mid-grand adventure. Join us for the next listener mail program. We try to make it pretty easy to find us.
That's right. Catch us online. You can get to us at the Handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook, where we have our Here's Where It Gets Crazy Facebook group, if you're still hanging around in that ecosystem. You can also find us at the Handle Conspiracy Stuff on YouTube and also on X, nay, Twitter. We are Conspiracy Stuff Show on Instagram and TikTok.
Hey, do you like using your phone and your mouth to communicate? Why not call us 1-833-STDWYTK. It's a voicemail system. You've got 3 minutes. Count them. 1, 2, 3. That's it. If you do choose to call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know if we can use your message on the air. If you've got more to say, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.